guess what? We made it to the end of November. It is the 28th, and we have to do some December planning. Otherwise, you're not going to get to plan with me. So we got to get that going. Now, I have this calendar. Basically, it's just a monthly calendar that shows the astrology transits of December. It'll just be down below. However, it may be more helpful for you, especially if you're a beginner, if you don't put all of this stuff on there. My recommendation is if you are brand new to planning with astrology, you may only want to do a few things. Number one is going to be whenever a planet enters into a new sign. That's called an ingress. I recommend that you put those on there because that's going to change the complete priority of that planet that's coming out in your chart. So you're going to want to put those on there. There's a couple of them in December. Another thing that I think that you should put on there, even if you are a newbie, is when planets station direct or retrograde. Another thing I think that you should add is going to be any new moon or full moon. The moon cycles are a really good way to just kind of get into the cyclical nature of astrology, so highly recommend that. Otherwise, like these ones where I've just got symbols where it says like planet sign aspect, that might not be that helpful for you if you're not sure what those planets mean. So that is when I think you should maybe leave them out. So we'll kind of go over what I think is most important in December, and then kind of what, as far as like what I'm doing, what I think maybe the best time frame to do those things is based on my chart, and I'll kind of give you some ideas why, so that way maybe you can apply that kind of concept or logic to your life. So let's go ahead and kind of get started. Let's talk about this a little more broadly, kind of an idea as far as like a horoscope. So for starting on December 1st on Friday, Mercury is going to be entering into Capricorn. Mercury is your mind, it's your intellect, it's how you think about things and how you communicate, whether that's writing, speaking, presentations, etc. Capricorn is a more practical energy, and it's usually thinking forward. It's a cardinal energy, so it's trying to always move forward and up. Of course, there's other nuances. I can't really give you this like a big breakdown of every single thing. Otherwise, this video would be like 12 hours long. So certainly I can't do that, but it's a good time for you to, if you feel like you've been kind of scattered, that's normal because Mercury in Sagittarius is a very scattered energy. Mercury doesn't care to be in Sagittarius because it is more big picture, and Mercury is more granular in details. And so once it moves into Capricorn, things are going to start feeling a lot more logical and reasonable. So if you have been kind of feeling like you've been out of sorts in that way, it should get a lot better. After that, going into December, until it goes retrograde for the first 2 weeks, you should feel like it's a little bit more straightforward. Just kind of want to give you a heads up that because we do know that Mercury is going to be going retrograde halfway through the month, we may not want to get really attached to things that we are planning or the communication that we're having or plans that we're making with people, just because they are so likely to kind of be revisited towards the middle of the month. After that, Mercury in Capricorn is going to be sextiling Saturn in Pisces. This is going to be good for hard work and focus. Saturn is kind of a reduction energy, so it's possible that it might feel like you are having less of racing thoughts. It could also mean that you are kind of feeling blocked or delayed. So I don't know necessarily if it's going to be good for you for communication. It could mean that you're having a really hard time expressing your thoughts, but it could also mean that you're just very focused, and so you'll have to see how that plays out for you. If you know about where Capricorn is in your chart, it may give you a better idea. It could be that maybe this is in your 7th house and you're having a hard time communicating with your partner. Could be in your 3rd house, maybe you're having a hard time communicating with your sibling, something like that. So it's possible that this could give you some kind of a blockage or a delay, but because it's a sextile and it's an opportunity aspect, I would say it's more likely that it's going to be something that is opportunistic. So keep your eyes peeled for a good opportunity there. Venus in Libra, which she's at home at, is going to be square Pluto in Capricorn. This could mean something is a little bit paranoia inducing, especially if it's related to relationships. So it might feel very intense. So this might be something that you want to kind of just calm down ahead of time and just be like, hey, I already know that there's some potential for intensity, especially surrounding my relationships. And so maybe I don't want to plan a talk with my partner that day because it could have the intensity than you're kind of anticipating. And so just try to keep it chill and calm in those situations. As far as the next day, Venus is going to be entering Scorpio. So we're going to start to see a little bit more of that. Venus doesn't really care for Scorpio. It's usually too intense for her. And she's usually looking for something a lot more diplomatic. And Scorpio is not really diplomatic. diplomatic. It's a lot more analytical. It's a lot more, unfortunately, it's a lot more penetrative, which is sometimes where that paranoia might come from if you're overanalyzing things. Just try to calm down for the rest of the month until Venus enters into Sag, which will feel a lot more lighthearted. Venus is very shortly, immediately after entering Scorpio, going to be trining Saturn, which could have a really good opportunity for you to kind of define some boundaries that you have with people in your life. Just know that because it is Scorpio, it could feel kind of confrontational because Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So just try to be aware of the confrontation aspect that has potential there, and just know that Saturn in Pisces is trying to build boundaries. Overall, that's a thing that's going on for the next 2 years or so. So boundaries are very important, and this could be a really great opportunity for you to kind of see those in action or try to practice them. Boundaries are they are always good for a relationship. The boundaries may need to be kind of updated, and with Saturn just so recently going direct in Pisces, I can see that kind of activating that. On the 6th, Neptune is going to be going direct in Pisces. This is something that happens every single year. It's retrograde for about half the year, so we might start to see things in a different way. Neptune is very regularly giving us confusion, or it's kind of like shielding us from seeing things as they truly are. And so it's possible that you could see things in a new way. It might not be that it's more clear, it might be that it's less clear, especially because Neptune would be getting stronger in a direct motion, and so things will start to look a little differently. I can't say whether or not they're going to be more accurate or less accurate. I'm just saying things are going to be starting to look differently, so kind of keep that in mind. A little while later, I do believe that we have some Neptune aspects with other planets, so we'll kind of talk about more specifics as those come up. The next day on the 7th, Mercury in Capricorn is going to be trine Taurus Jupiter. So this is time where you're going to have a little bit more logical focus, because Capricorn and Taurus are both earth signs, and they're very much involved with the material world and doing things in a more practical manner. I feel like this is good ideas and things that you can put into practice. So it's something that is going to help you reap rewards, I would assume, because that's going to be Taurus is going to be finances or the real world, like the world that we live in, 3D, and Jupiter is expanding those. Mercury is your ideas and the way you communicate, and so I would say maybe there's opportunities or just things coming to mind that make you understand how you can kind of reap some rewards. So I would be on the lookout for good ideas, or for whatever the Taurus house is in your chart, for something to be growing there that's directly impacting how you're thinking, what you're saying. You're gonna probably have a little more clarity. There's gonna be, something that's very action oriented, step 1, 2, 3 to get XYZ result. After that, Venus in Scorpio is going to be opposing Jupiter in Taurus. Now, I don't think this is going to be bad. Venus isn't feeling very comfortable. Scorpio is opposite Taurus. She's not very happy there and comfortable there, but Jupiter and Venus overall are positive planets. Now, the thing that I feel like could kind of go wrong here is that Venus is the ruler of Jupiter, and so Venus being uncomfortable is going to impact Jupiter. This could also have something to do with what we were talking about a couple days ago with Mercury being there. Because Mercury is in Capricorn and it is trining the Jupiter, it's possible that there could be something like, because that would create a sextile aspect between Venus and Mercury. So Venus is the boss of Jupiter here, and Mercury is communicating with Jupiter, and so what you're thinking is probably influenced and colored by Venus and how she's feeling. So since Venus is not feeling super comfortable, I would take that into account. If the things that are coming up, especially with that Mercury, step-by-step actions, is contingent upon your relationships, just be cautious. Remember what I said about Mercury going backwards over these degrees, because Venus and Jupiter are in some sort of kind of tug-of-war tension. After that, we're going to have that sextile that I was talking about. It's going to come exact on the 11th. So Mercury in Capricorn is going to be sextile Venus in Scorpio. So this is, I'm not going to repeat myself, but that's pretty much what I was just saying, where your mind planet Mercury and your relationship planet Venus are going to have a sextile, so they're communicating well. But just remember, Venus is frustrated in Scorpio and it's feeling a little intense. She's feeling a little bit attacked. After that, on the 12th, we're going to have the Sagittarius new moon. Check out where the new moon is falling in your chart to figure out exactly kind of what new beginning may be starting here. If you have no idea how to do that, just let me know. Leave me a message down below and I will make sure to know that, okay, I need to make a video about how to do that. But otherwise, Sagittarius in whatever house in your chart, just Google new moon in what house, and that should give you a good idea of what kind of new beginning will be going on there. After that, Mercury is going to be going retrograde. It's not really after that, it's kind of during that. Mercury is going to be going retrograde as well. We've already talked about what Mercury retrograde means, so I'm not going to go more into detail on that. But if you want more nuance, you can check what area of your chart that's happening in. After that, we're going to have a little bit of a break, thank God, because we're going to have the Sun in Sagittarius square Neptune in Pisces on the 16th. I feel like this might be a little bit of confusion. Usually Neptune is going to be confusing, it's going to be delusional, it's not going to know exactly how to get what it wants. Whenever water gets where it's going, it just goes around things. It's not necessarily in a straight line. And so that is very resonant of the Sun and Neptune aspects. It could be confusing, you're not really sure what you're doing, you're not really sure where to go. Everything kind of feels wrong. And so I don't want you to feel like, oh gosh, this sounds horrible. It's not going to be horrible. It's just going to be a little bit dreamy, a little bit confusing. You feel like you should act, but you don't really know what to do. So just don't do anything and just chill. Do things you are sure about and just wait for the things you're not sure about. After that, we're going to have that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is going to be trine that Jupiter in Taurus again. So you're going to have a throwback to whatever was going on around the 7th. And so that's kind of the same aspect. It's just kind of in reverse. So just note that about around those times, take some good notes in your journal. Let yourself be reminded what's going on at that time. I like to use my journal and app so that I can just search that transit. I can search Mercury transits or Jupiter transits and they'll come up under both. And then I will see exactly kind of what was going on then. So I can be like, oh, okay, now I'm understanding the process that's unfolding. Again, I'm not going to repeat what that means. It's just going to be something with a little twist because the Mercury is going to be retrograde. After that, on the 20th, you'll have the Venus in Scorpio opposing the Uranus in Taurus. This could be related to whatever was going on earlier in the month on the 9th. Would expect it to be a little bit more surprising and shocking just because that's the nature of Uranus. But whatever's going on with Uranus in your chart, by now you should know. And if you don't know, then we can go over again how to look at your houses in your chart. But the Taurus house in your chart is going through some kind of freedom-seeking process, and it has been since around, I think, was it 2017? I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the exact date, but it's been quite a while. So ever since Uranus entered Taurus, there's been some place that you've been sort of rebelling and trying to break free of whatever mold you were in that area. So this is going to give you some kind of maybe more awareness around it. It's likely that it'll have something to do with someone else in your life just because Venus is usually relative to other people. It doesn't necessarily represent your partner, just the archetype of diplomacy and relationships in your life. And so you could kind of be like, whoa, oh my gosh, I don't know how I never saw this before. Here's something I'm recognizing or realizing, maybe who I am as a partner or how other people generally treat me, things like that. It could also be to do with beauty or some creative project that you're taking part in. But just know that there's something that you're not really going to be able to predict going on in that area. After that, you'll have that Mercury retrograde in Capricorn trine that Saturn in Pisces. So that's going to be a throwback back to the 2nd of December. We're going to have that same aspect again. It's going to, just like I said, have just a little twist. So make sure you're taking good notes about what's going on around the 2nd of the month, just so that way you can kind of see, has this opportunity come back because it's a retrograde. So it might be something coming back. Maybe there was something that you decided not to take advantage of at the beginning of the month that you're being told, hey, this is actually a really good idea. Maybe I should do that. Or maybe you took some opportunity and you were feeling like, oh man, that was not the right move. I regret doing that. But around this time of the month, around the winter solstice, you start to see the value in it. So there's something where you're kind of revisiting an opportunity or an opportunity is revisiting you. Probably something to do with boundaries or the Pisces house in your chart, just because that is where Saturn is and it is creating some boundaries and a foundation. And then Mercury, however you're thinking. The Sun will also be entering into Capricorn there. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. It's so easy to Google that information. Usually it's something to do with ambition or with climbing a ladder or trying to initiate something new. But check the Capricorn area of your chart for where you'll have a little bit more illumination coming forward with that energy in your life. For me, it's my first house, like I said, so I usually start to feel a little bit more present. After that, on the 22nd, Mercury is going to Cazimi. So that means that Mercury is going to be directly conjunct the Sun. So a Cazimi is always with the Sun. It's just a fancy name for an exact conjunction with the Sun. The last Mercury Cazimi was in Virgo. in September on the 6th. Take that for what it's worth. If you'd like to go back to your journal, I hope you're keeping a good journal. For September 6th, that will tell you when the last Mercury cazimi was, or the last time that the Sun and Mercury were on the same page. Mercury conjoining with the Sun is going to give you more of an understanding intellectually of how to express yourself as an individual and as someone independent from all the other things in the world, all the other people in your life, and all the other planets that are trying to express in your chart. And so you will be on the same page in that way. After that, Mercury retrograde is going to be happening in Sagittarius, and that, or well, more so, Mercury will be entering back into Sagittarius. And so I think that's really notable. I'm going to keep good notes for myself on what the heck is going on in my mercurial mind while this is happening, because the Mercury cazimi in Capricorn is basically happening at the same time that Mercury is retrograding back into Sagittarius. And so that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Come back and reply down in the comments kind of what's going on there. After that, on the 24th, we're going to have the Sun in Capricorn sextile Saturn in Pisces. I think it's going to be good for our boundaries. Like I've been saying about Saturn and Pisces, we've been having a lot of squares before this when we were having planets in Sagittarius at the beginning of the month and at the end of November. We had a lot of squares to Saturn. And so there was a lot of friction and a lot of conflict and a lot of frustration around our boundaries, how we were expressing them. And so I do think that having this now is kind of a settling in, and we're going to start to know, okay, yes, I've established these boundaries. I've started to practice them. I am seeing a benefit of them, and I'm seeing how they're impacting me as an individual. I can commit now to going forward with these so that way I can be more independent. I can be more comfortable with this new foundation that I've laid. After that, the next day, we're going to have Venus in Scorpio is going to be trine Neptune in Pisces. This is a really dreamy day, and it could be good. I feel like this is very romantic. It might be that you're not really seeing through clear vision. You will either have a really romantic, dreamy day, and you may have some really great intuitive downloads for creative projects, or you might be kind of thinking that things are going to be better or easier than they really are. They might not really be. The next day, we're going to have quite a few things going on. We're going to have the Cancer full moon. So that's going to be kind of illuminating whatever's going on in your Cancer area of your life. After that, you've got the Sun in Capricorn is going to be trine Jupiter in Taurus. So that means that the Cancer full moon sextile the Jupiter in Taurus. So you can take those keywords, take the keywords of Jupiter, which is going to be expansion, abundance, growth, and it could also mean things like our relationship to God or religion or different cultures or things like that. Just kind of depends on how it's playing out in your chart and where, in what house it's in, of course. And then as far as the keywords for the Sun, our ego, our independence, how we like to shine, what we like to do, kind of the trunk of our tree. At the same time, we're going to have Chiron going direct in Aries. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The keywords for Chiron are going to be things like wounded healer. It's going to be kind of going within, try and kind of mend up things that are really dragging us down and really making us feel like we're different. And then hopefully we'll be on the next iteration of healing that and helping others heal that as well. Again, full moons usually represent a letting go, a completion of some kind. And so you may be letting go of some kind of dynamic. Doesn't mean you're going to break up. Doesn't mean that you're going to, lose anything necessarily. It just means a release of some kind. What I like to do with full moons is just kind of write down, especially in relationship to what my house is representative of. So like if it's my 7th house, it might be my partnership. If it's my 6th house, it might be a health concern that I have. If it's my 4th house, it might be some issue that's going on in my home. And I just like to write out what is it that I want to be released from. And so I like to do it that way. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on full moons and new moons because sometimes they're big, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're subtle. The next day, we're going to have Sagittarius Mercury, which is retrograde. It's not gone direct yet, as far as I remember. I don't think I've said that yet. So Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius is going to be conjoined with Mars in Sagittarius. Now, this could be something that is a little bit frustrating, a little bit explosive. This could be conflict, arguments. It could be accidents. I don't mean to make you scared or anything, but Mercury does represent cars. It does represent transportation. It could also mean there's not a conflict with your money necessarily, but if you're somebody that is involved in a market, Mercury does represent commerce as well. So there could be some problems around that. Mars is conflict and frustration and challenge. challenge, and that could all be manifesting in some way to do with whatever Mercury is involved with. Now, if you have it in one part of your chart or the other, that's really relevant. So you need to look and see what's going on in that area of your chart. So for me, having it in my 12th house is probably not going to represent a car accident, just because my 12th house has nothing to do with travel or cars or even really other people that much. It's more about my internal mental health, my emotional health, my meditation practice, or whatever. It could mean, if I want to reach a little bit, it could mean that maybe there was some kind of accident that made me go to a hospital. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I mean, this astrology is basically the most broad thing I can think of. And so that could happen. Just want to put it in your ear to be just a little cautious that day. Don't be running around. Just kind of keep it calm. After that, we're going to have Mars in Sagittarius square Neptune in Pisces. I hate this aspect. I hate it. And in fact, I already have this thing on my Facebook that I repost every time this comes up, where Mars, which is action, is in some kind of a fucking relationship with Neptune, which is confusion. This is what I was talking about earlier, where we're going to have conflicts where we're not really sure what we should do. We feel like something is wrong. We feel like we're doing it wrong. We feel like we need to go. We need to act. We need to do something right now, because if I don't do it right now, my whole life is going to be ruined, and I fucking hate it. So just want to put it out there. This is going to be happening towards the end of the month. Don't need to start your life over. You don't need to burn every bridge. You don't need to go there. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You just need to stay calm and, again, roll with the punches, go with the flow. Your job is to chill out and not feel like if you don't change everything right now, you're going to explode. It's just Mars and Neptune doing their thing. It's not that this point in the month is not important. It's not that we should just skip it. There's going to be something that comes out of it, but it's not going to feel very fun. It's not going to feel very good. So just relax and roll with the punches. That's my best advice for that. Annoyingly, on the same day, we're going to have Venus in Scorpio sextile Pluto in Capricorn. So this is kind of a throwback to what we were dealing with at the Venus was square Pluto on the 3rd of December. It's going to be kind of a throwback to that. It might be that there's some related opportunity that comes because the sextile is an opportunity. It might be, though, that it's not that related just because it's in a whole other sign. It's something that's progressed. We can see how that can play out. So it could be that there's something in your Scorpio house that has something to do with relationship dynamics, and then something to do with Pluto, which can be painful. Honestly, this could be a painful aspect. It could be something paranoia induced. It could be something where someone gives you something that just buries like a worm in your head, and you have to dig it out with a scalpel. So I just want to put it out there. Again, not to be a fear monger, just to let you know, hey, Venus, relationship dynamics, conflict, avoidance, right? People pleasing, potentially, especially in Scorpio, where we're like, I'm afraid to lose something, so I'm just going to do nothing, right? So that could be a Scorpio Venus thing. And then Pluto could be corruption. It could be something dirty and viscous and penetrative, and it could be uncovering something. So it's always for the good, obviously. I think the long term, as long as you're kind of working with this stuff consciously, it's always going to be for the good in the long term. But comfortable? Probably not. Luckily, the next day, Venus will enter Sagittarius. Now, I'm not saying that the next day you're going to wake up just like, oh, fuck all that, don't matter. No, it probably still matters. But you're going to feel more optimistic, generally. Venus is going to be way happier in Sagittarius, so kind of as that energy goes on, it's going to feel lighter, it's going to feel more confident, it's going to feel like, you know what, actually, as time's going on, I'm really glad that happened, and now I know more, and I can just move on, and I can go, and I can seek meaning elsewhere, right? So that's going to be that optimism that we are going to be craving, I think. Oh, it's going to be great. I always love when Venus enters Sagittarius after Scorpio. It's so much lighter, it's so much more exciting and fun and dynamic. After that, on the 30th, Jupiter is going to be stationing direct, so that's exciting because most people have a positive relationship with Jupiter. Sometimes Jupiter can cause kind of like a cancerous growth, and it can kind of really boost stuff that we don't really like. So I can't say that this is going to be just like the best thing ever, yay, but generally, we do usually like when Jupiter goes direct. It usually unlocks some opportunities, abundance, luck, excitement, things like that. And check Taurus and see what kind of keywords come up with that house in your chart. After that, there's not really anything going on the 31st. So that's kind of where we're at for December. Did want to give you the opportunity to see how the heck I plan using astrology, because it's not just as easy as just like writing down the aspects in your calendar. You have to know what they mean. You have to know what your goals are. Like, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? If you don't know those things, then it's hard to use astrology. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard to get there. On the extended chart selection page, test horoscope selected. So what I'm trying to get my head around on this one is kind of where things are in the beginning and where things are at the end of the month. So the test is set to December 1st, 2023, and then the start date for the transit is marked for December 31st, 2023. So that way when we show the chart and we click to show transits, it will show me where we're starting and where we're ending. And I just have it set to Lebanon, Kansas. That's because that's the middle of the United States. If you're not in the United States, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anywhere particular. At the beginning of December, it looks like this. So we're going to be starting with, if you look at the inner chart here, we're going to be starting with the sun in Sagittarius. That's how December always starts. At this time, Mars is also near the sun at 5 degrees. Go a little further, Mercury will just have entered into Capricorn. Pluto's still in Capricorn, been there for a long time. It's going to be switching at the beginning of the new year, but it's not there yet. Saturn is finally at 1 degree. It spent the entire last month at 0 degrees, and before that it was going retrograde in Pisces. Neptune, saw it's going to be going direct this month, but still in Pisces, been there since 2012, long transit. Chiron, still in Aries, long transit. The node, still in Aries, long transit. Jupiter, still in Taurus, another long transit. Uranus, long transit in Taurus. So we see those things are not moving much, and you can see that right here. See how these are so close? You can see those are long transits, and they're going to be staying kind of where they are now. Move along, move along. We got the sun is, or the moon is going to be starting it out in Leo. It's also going to be ending the month in Leo. Venus is going to be in Libra the beginning of the month, and then she will move into Scorpio, but even by the end of the month, she's going to be already over in Sagittarius. So she's going to be moving relatively fast, and she's going to be going through the whole entire sign of Scorpio. And then by the end of the month, Mercury will have retrograded from Capricorn back into Sagittarius. Mars will have moved a little further along in Sagittarius. The sun will have gone over the border into Capricorn. Otherwise, the others stay kind of in the same place. That is where we're going to be starting. I like to look at the personal planets just because unless something is changing here in these long-term planets, those are going to be kind of on the same priority trajectory that they were on before. So the major thing that we're looking at is Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And that's going to be pretty standard for every month. Those are the major players as far as monthly calendars go. And then the moon, that's going to be more on like a weekly basis. So if you like to track the moon, then that's going to be more weekly. All right, so that's where we're going to be starting. So I just like to check that out before we really get started with my monthly planning. I've already got my calendar listed as all day, and I just did that so that way it's easier to just see on the monthly because I use my calendar for time blocking. So if I put it at the time that it happens, it will get buried in here and I won't really see it when I'm looking at like the overview of the month. So that's not very helpful. All right, so the first thing that I am going to do is kind of check in with your goals list or wherever you keep all of that, and just kind of go over what am I trying to accomplish? What is my goal? How many things do I have going on? Is there anything as far as like one-off things that I have to do? Do I have to go to this place or that place? Do I have to go to the courthouse to get my license plates, or do I have to send in, something for this bill? When are the Christmas parties? Or am I doing like a friend's giving late or whatever? So you're going to put those things in your calendar, obviously. That's all, required for every month of planning. As far as my goals go for this next month, my to-do app, some of these are not difficult and some of them are, like get a Christmas tree base. I have that set for December 27th. It's already on my to-do list and it's going to send me a notification for that. Newbie startup guide, finish decks module 2 and then recordings of module 2. That's a pretty big task and it's pretty intellectual. The main thing is that I want them to be done by a certain time. So the Newbie startup guide course, I want to be done by the end of the month. So that's one of my major goals, is Newbie Startup Guide done by December 31st. So I'm going to check that out. I need to finish two slide decks and record 5 videos, but I'll do those all on the same day. So the 2 slide decks will probably take 2 days. Mercury sextile Saturn, great day for that. So let's say slide deck 1 Mercury entering into Capricorn generally is going to be a sextile, so we'll do that 2 and slide deck 1. And then Venus is going to enter Scorpio on the 4th, which means Venus will enter my 11th house, but it'll be pretty close to conjunct my midheaven right then. Pretty much right away, that means that Venus is going to be trining Saturn, which is in my 3rd house of like communicating. And so I think that'll be pretty good. So let's do the recording of those 5 videos. Recording the 5 videos that day. After that, my Newbie Startup Guide Module 2 should be all done. And then that will leave at least 4 lessons in the 3rd module, which will mean 4 slide decks at least, and then 4 recordings, which is 1 day. I would really like to get all of the slide decks done before Mercury is going retrograde. So that way I can use Mercury retrograde as the time to like edit and refine and like communicate with the people who are using it. So that way it's perfectly timed for the Mercury retrograde, so I can just like go back. That's what Mercury retrograde should be used for. It's not all bad. Sometimes it's annoying, but it is what that is for. I've got to find time in between first full week of December for creating the 4 slide decks. I don't know if all 4 of them will require slide decks, but we're going to assume that they will. So then we're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be 4 days. So then let's see. It says Mercury in Capricorn is going to be sextile Venus in Scorpio. Perfect, because that'll be Mercury in my 1st house is going to be sextiling Venus in my communication to my audience house, right? Like it's not communication necessarily, but it is a social house to my audience, which is great. That's who we want to talk to. And that will be the perfect day to record other 4 videos for module 3, which is 2 days before the deadline for the module 3 to be done, which is when Mercury goes retrograde in Capricorn. So that looks perfect. So Newbie Startup Guide course done by the end of December. Should be good because it's all scheduled to be done in the first half of December before Mercury even goes retrograde, and then we'll use the retrograde in order to just kind of refine it, make sure that we like everything. If we need to re-record or edit any of the slide decks and re-upload, perfect. So that's what the plan is for the Newbie Startup Guide. Next, I have some indexing issues on my website, but I'm not going to actually fix those right now because the reason that there are problems is because I am updating my SEO on all of my blog posts. So I'm not going to do the one before I finish the rest. So we're going to finish updating the blog post for the SEO. That is the perfect usage for Mercury retrograde. So that's going to be in the end of the month. Ideally, I will do that before the 21st when the sun enters Capricorn. It's because when the sun enters Capricorn, I start to feel like a little bit more present. And so I kind of can do some hermiting type stuff work before that while everything is in my 12th house. On Thursday, we'll do SEO update ? And then that's going to take longer than that for sure. On the 18th, we've got Mercury retrograde trine my Jupiter in Taurus. That is really nice, and I don't know if I necessarily want to waste it on SEO updating. So maybe we'll do some other kind of recording. So I'm just going to put recording for YouTube ? On that day. And then we'll see if maybe on Tuesday I'm feeling like doing more SEO updating. I'm not going to schedule, we'll just schedule 2 for now, and then we'll not schedule the end of the month to be super full. What else? We're getting blogs transferred from my Facebook over to my blog. That's pretty well done, that project. So that's kind of along the lines with the fixing the Google page indexing issues. So maybe we'll put it on the last day with the SEO update, because I don't actually know if it's gonna take all that time. If it does, that's fine, but it's like part of the same project. So SEO updating and transferring Facebook post to blog, put those on the same. That'll be on the 19th. After that, send messages to check in with the Newbie Startup Guides. I'm just gonna talk to them and just see how everything is going with the course. I need to do that a couple times. Let's just do it on Tuesday during the Sagittarius new moon. Venus in Scorpio trine Saturn in Pisces. That's the 5th as well. So we'll message them a week before as well. That way they have a decent amount of support in the beginning. So that is the majority of those types of things that I need to do. Perfect. So now I will know kind of what what project I'm working on. I can feel like I know where I'm going, because that's kind of been a problem for my whole life, is not really knowing what I should be working on when, even though I have all these goals, I never really know what I'm supposed to be doing. We're gonna stop doing that. I will see you in the next one. Bye.